all sincere seekers, I invoke you all to chant with me Gayatri Mahamantra, the epitome of the Indian civilization. With your left hand beneath and the right hand above, with your back straight, close your eyes in a contemplative mood and chant with me beside. Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Nah Prachodaya. Today we embark upon the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In the last deliberation, we had entailed a detail whereby we understood the relevance of Srimad Bhagavad Gita that far exceeds the general understanding that merely corresponds to the religion realms. Bhagavad Gita is an observation by great ancient seers. In the dimensions of consciousness, all occurrences that come as a deep observation before a seer became a compilation in the form of Shruti. And Bhagavad Gita is an extraction from our Shruti, namely the Vedas and the Upanishads. Today, we start with the first chapter with a rider that we shall always observe a premonition to understand each and every word from the aspect of the technology of consciousness, the engineering of consciousness that can enable a limited self transcend into the eternity from where entire manifestation arises. Before I come down to that, it is pertinent for me to make a mention of a great seer by the name Rishi Vaishampayan. I'll repeat the name Rishi. When I say Rishi, that means a great seer, Rishi Vaishampayan. In the times unknown, which probably is not chronologically ascertained or established, Rishi Vaishampayan was deliberating upon the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavad Gita to a prince by the name Janamejaya. Janamejaya is again a Sanskrit name. While he was deliberating, at that moment of time, as the information has traveled down, Mahabharata, the basic core epic from where Bhagavad Gita comes as a part. Bhagavad Gita happens to be a portion, a chapter in the larger epic that we know as Mahabharata. Rishi Vaishampayan makes an observation that Mahabharata is an epic that is comprising of 8,800 shlokas, phrases. Rishi Vaishampayan, in order to enable a common mind understand the complexity or the hidden truth that was concealed in those 8,800 phrases, he detailed it further to 24,000 shlokas. The times passed, additions were made, the compilation arose from 24,000 to what it is today, 1 lakh phrases. Mahabharata, as on this date, is a compilation, an epic comprising 1,100,000 shlokas, out of which 700 count as the part Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And as I deliberated last time, it was by the endeavor of one of our revered great seer, Adi Guru Shankaracharya, that this particular piece of work of a great seer was brought out of those 100,000 shlokas and presented before the commoners as Bhagavad Gita. Today, It withstands as a testimony of an ancient Indian understanding. It is the epitome of ancient wisdom of India. Having said that, I must also make a mention that 8,800 original shlokas that came down to us in the form of Mahabharata was inextricably an effort by the great seers to make a mention of the technology of consciousness, whereby any human being could dive within, internalize, make exercises within, and excel to the realms where the great seers had already touched. Now, in order to make it understood by the commoners, the elaboration was furthered in the form of a story. The characters were ascribed to it. The fact was that all those characters were nothing but mere personification of the subtler movements in a human being. I take liberty at number of occasions to mention Bhagavad Gita as a compilation of yogic psychology, a deep psychology that exceeds the limits of the mind. It transcends into the realms of the consciousness. And those 8,800 original shlokas probably withstood the tenacity of the technology of consciousness. How a sincere seeker, by observing one's own true self, can day after day excel and extend one's limited self to that higher self that is already prevailing all over as the cosmic mind. The author of this compilation, the author of this epic, whom we recall as Rishi Ved-Vyas. Ved means the light of knowledge. One that imbibes the light of knowledge is termed as Ved-Vyas. According to the epic, it is mentioned that Ved-Vyas had two sons, namely Dhritarashtra and Pandu. And the entire epic unfolds from those two basic major characters. Dhritarashtra, though it is a name ascribed to a character, but it is embedded with a hidden meaning behind it. Dhritarashtra is a composition of two different words, namely Dhrit and Rashtra. Rashtra means to prevail, to govern, to hold. And Dhrit means by any instance, for any reason, for any count, to hold the governance. It ascribes to the mind of a human being. The mind of a human being, as generally understood by the great seers, is blindfolded. It would never like to relinquish its right of the governance upon this entity that we know as human existence. The manas is termed as mind. In Sanskrit, we term it as manas. The manas, it steers its exercise through our sensory organs. Each human being is vested with 10 major sensory organs. 5 are knowledge-oriented and 5 are action-oriented. These organs, the sensory organs, enable, they are the instrumentation, and they enable any human being perceive, observe, and conduct one's own life in a common world. It is also said that mind by its own self is blindfolded. It does not have the potential to conduct any exercise on its own. Independently, it's a non-existent entity. It only gathers the ground when it affords to ride upon the instrumentality of existence, that is the 10 sensory organs. Dhritarashtra is the personification of that blind mind that makes use of 10 sensory organs. And when those 10 sensory organs, driven by a blind mind, unmindfully, they charter out for malefic intentions, the effects of their chartering can produce 100-fold effects. It is why it is said that Dhritarashtra had 100 sons. It was not by the act of procreation that he could afford to have 100 children. No, it was not so. It's an allegory which has been put to use in order to express the wild movements of the sensory organs when they are steered by a blind mind. That is why under the epic 2, the basic character Dhritarashtra has been confided as a blind gentleman. But he is prevailing at the seat of governance. He is the emperor. Though he has usurped the seat of governance from his brother Pandu, but he does not want to relinquish what rightfully belongs to his brother and steers it across. On the other side, the second brother is Pandu. Pandu means the one that is pure. The pure intellect within any human being can be ascribed as Pandu, and is generally understood and observed in a normal life that the sheer pure intellect will not hold that adequate strength to withstand the test of any situation or time. It is the mind of a human being that generally takes the command and can roost the rule. The great seer had envisaged these two characters in order to indicate these two subtler forces within any human being. At any point of time, we have these two. One that should rule the Pandu, the sheer pure intellect, and one that prevails generally as the ruler, the one who has usurped the seat of governance, that is the Dhritarashtra. Pandu had 5 sons. It was deliberated last time. Those 5 sons, it's an attribution to 5 subtler elements that constitute the basic material form where all we can see. Those 5 subtler elements: the fire, the air, the water, the earth, the sky. All these 5 subtler instruments, along with the water, are the 5 children of the pure sheer intellect that constitute existence. The last recording can gather you all the relevance that each one of them correspondingly and respectively beholds. From here, the war initiates. The first shloka is very carefully placed and coined by the author. The first shloka says, Dharmkshetra Kurukshetra samaveta yuyutsava. Dharmkshetra Kurukshetra samaveta yuyutsava. Mamaka pandaschaiva kim kuruvat Sanjaya. Who is pronouncing this shloka? The author. It's a very sagacious move by the author. The author has carefully chosen and ascribed this particular shloka, the first one of Bhagavad Gita, to Dhritarashtra. Why? This shloka could have been a pronouncement by some other character. Why by Dhritarashtra? Now, this is a very important question that must be understood. The war has started, and under the war, the first one who is anxious, who's crazy to understand, is Dhritarashtra, who's prevailing, who's ruling. But he's blind, he cannot see. He's not in the battlefield by himself. He's established at some remote and safe location. And he has been provided with a special intuitive facility by the name Sanjaya. Sanjaya is another character which we must understand. Who is Sanjaya? Now, Sanjaya, as the epic narrates, had the specific paranormal powers in order to make an observation of a distant location and narrate the entirety which was going on in the battlefield. Who is Sanjaya? within us, as we have all these characters of Bhagavad Gita residing and prevailing within us, Sanjaya too is a character. Who is Sanjaya? The transparent and pure understanding that reflects without any kind of any contamination all that it is. It's the mirror effect within any human being. When you charter to commence upon any kind of an act with its good intention or with a bad intention, this Sanjaya would always arise. The word Sanjaya means victorious at all times. The one that cannot be given defiance. You cannot give it a defiance. Victorious at all times is Sanjaya. You can suppress this. You may not heed to it. You may not listen to what exactly Sanjaya wants to say. But you cannot eliminate Sanjaya. It shall always prevail within any human being. Whenever any human being is about to dispense with an act, good or bad, the mirror effect would immediately arise and show the basic character. This act of yours is malefic. This act of yours is noble. Noble or ignoble, the mirror effect would reflect as it is. It is also said that Sanjaya is the pure journalist on the battlefield of the life, and that Sanjaya prevails in each one of us. So the question is by Dhritarashtra to that Sanjaya, the pure journalist residing in each one of us, that is the mirror effect, without any contamination, devoid of any kind of impurity, a pure reflection. A question is asked by the blind emperor. Tell me, what is transpiring on the battlefield between my children and the warring faction, that is the Pandavas? Mamaka means mine. Pandavaschaiva means the Pandav Putras, the warring faction. Kim Kuruvat Sanjaya, what is transpiring, Sanjay? Tell me, I am anxious to know about that. Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra, Samaveta. Samaveta means gathered, people who have gathered at a point, who have collected. Samaveta, Yuyutsava, with the intention to fight a battle. Yuyutsava means those who have gathered with an intention to fight a battle. Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra, these two words are very important to be understood. Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra. What does Dharmkshetra mean? Kshetra means a region, a territory. A territory. What is Dharma territory? What is Dharmkshetra? All those mandatory, necessary obligations before a human being are his Dharmkshetra. So the territory that entails the list of all of your mandatory or necessary obligation that must be dispensed at your end comes under the understanding of Dharmkshetra. Kurukshetra. What is Kurukshetra? Kurukshetra is the region, the territory where you actually dispense your acts. It's always like when you start your day, your planner will reflect to you what are all necessary, would entail priority wise, what all must be dispensed during a day. That is your Dharmkshetra. Necessary obligations that must be done justice with. But what all you have actually been able to do, accomplish, that is Karmkshetra, Kurukshetra. The Kurukshetra is also indeed a geographical location in India, in the state of Haryana, where the epic informs the actual battlefield was conducted. The battle was conducted in Kurukshetra, whereas it is an indication of the region within a human being itself. Kurukshetra comes out of a Sanskrit root Kri, that is action, to act. Where you act, a territory, a region where you act. Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra. Both of these words can be ascribed to many kind of understanding. We all have Dharmkshetra and Kurukshetra as a householder. We all have a Dharmkshetra Kurukshetra as a professional. We all have a Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra as a citizen. We all have a Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra as a soul, as a human being who needs to develop inside. We all have a Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra as a person who has to look after the entire creation. There are so many kind of dimensions that can be attributed to Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra. Here, the question has been raised by whom? The blind emperor who is not prepared, the least prepared to relinquish his rights from the state of governance. He is raising the question. If you understand the intention of the great seer, he could have ascribed this phrase, this shloka, to some other character. Why did he ascribe it to Dhritarashtra, one who has usurped the seat of governance, one who is blind? Only for a reason. Whenever a human being would charter an endeavor to change or reform one's own individuality, immediately the forces that are in control, the forces that dwarf the size of a human being to a minuscule, would always get alarmed. Whosoever has a malefic intention and is riding the rule, if there is any kind of a revolution against, any kind of a revolt against it, it would be alarmed. Likewise, Dhritarashtra is alarmed because he is given to understand that now in the battle, the warring factions are facing each other. Mind forces and the forces of the opponents are confronting each other. What is going to happen? I have already usurped the rights of the others. They may not, they might, they may not. He is moving, swinging like a pendulum inside, under deep, intense sense of anxiety, and raises an alarm by asking a question to that intuitive and pure insight of a human being, Sanjaya. Tell me, what is going on? What is going on in both the territories, the territory of necessary obligation and the territory where actual action is being dispensed? The author has carefully chosen Dhritarashtra, the first shloka of Bhagavad Gita. The first shloka of Bhagavad Gita is a pronouncement by the devilish forces, the fear they behold inside, that we may not lose. And that concern of them is expressed in the first shloka itself. Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra, Samaveta Yuyotsava, Mamaka Pandaschaiva Kim Kurvat Sanjaya. Because somewhere deep in the heart, the malefic intention knows that I am illegally confining to the right of governance. In a human being, the mind is generally ruling the entire domain of the sensory organs. Any day when there is an inner call, an inner urge in a human being to change all that must be changed so that one can excel towards righteousness, inner development, inner growth, immediately the mind that prevails, that always seeks all service from sensory organs, will raise an alarm, get alarmed. And that is what the first shloka it contains as I deliberated right now. As I mentioned that the phrase and the special reference to the words Dharmkshetra, Kurukshetra has got various kinds of significance. Spiritual development is one of them. And this particular scripture, it makes a mention under the light of the spiritual development of a human being. Now, coming down to the second shloka, the second shloka makes a mention where now the Sanjaya, that is the pure journalist residing inside, the mirror effect, the pure mirror. It is reflecting the scene of the battlefield. He informs the blind emperor that right now your eldest son, Duryodhana, your eldest son Duryodhana has approached his master Drona. Duryodhana, your eldest son, has approached the master, the guru Drona, who was also called as Drona Acharya. Acharya is another word which is generally ascribed to people who are knowledgeable, who behold perfection about any stream or sphere of life. So he informs him that your eldest son has approached the master Drona in order to discuss and inform him about the state of the battlefield. Who is Duryodhana? In the last, if you can recollect, in the last deliberation I had made a mention. Obstinate materialistic desires that do not inexorably, inexplicably do not want to relinquish the human insight has been termed as Duryodhana. The malefic intention that are obstinate, they don't want to change, don't want to yield. That is Duryodhana, that obstinate materialistic desire. It's an outcome of the blind mind. A blind mind would have an obstinate materialistic desire at the foremost priority. That is why Duryodhana happens to be the eldest son of Dhritarashtra, the blind emperor. And the eldest son is approaching the master, Drona. Who is Drona? Drona is a teacher. Drona is a trainer. He is a teacher and a trainer. What does Drona have to do under the terminology of the technology that we are mentioning here? Yes, it has got a great relevance over here. It is said the third shloka would clarify the aspect more. Duryodhana approaches the master and informs him, look master, those and that, those mean almost all the leading warriors, almost. And that word is ascribed to the main general of the army, the general of the opponent army, the Pandavas, was Drishtadyumna. Now Duryodhana, the eldest son of the blind emperor, informs the master that that army of the opponents, of the enemy, is now headed by the general Drishtadyumna, who was trained by you. And as a matter of fact, Drona was the master of both the leading characters of both the armies. The Pandus and the Kauravas, they share a common teacher. They were trained by the common teacher Dronacharya. It may appear to be a dichotomy, something which is conflicting, that the master of both the enemies is now siding with the one which has got malefic intention. Here the teacher or the master does not ascribe to the true master that we generally gather from the term guru. No, here it does not mean that. Here Drona means, what does Drona mean? In Sanskrit, Drona means one that melts, one that settles. One that melts, one that settles is Drona. And what is that? Any exercise, any activity which you start dispensing habitually each day as a matter of practice, religiously you start doing anything, what is it going to become? It is going to become a hardened propensity. The propensity in a larger term is mentioned as sanskar in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, the hardened propensities, good or bad, irrespective of them, are mentioned as sanskar. And Drona has been ascribed as an indication towards hardened propensities in a human being. Sanskar, as at the Indian way of belief, it has two fundamental pillars, out of which one is the karmic fallout, the karma, and the second is punarjanam, reincarnation of a human being, of a being. We all reincarnate. We had a life before, several lives before, and we are certainly going to have many after this one. After this particular life, we'll have many more lives. We shall certainly reincarnate. The karmic system and the reincarnation are two basic pillars that uphold the ancient Indian wisdom. If you remove any of the pillars out of it, the entire wisdom shall fall like a pack of play cards. And that is something which is most important for all sincere seekers who would like to understand the ancient Indian wisdom with its veracity, must accept and understand the importance of the karma, the theory of the karma, the karmic fallouts that accrue to each and every act of a human being, and at the same time, not only karma, but not only this life, the fallout of a karma of this life shall have to be experienced in the life thereafter. So these two. Now here, we not only experience, are driven by the habits we have gathered from this very life, we are also driven by the propensities that we gathered, developed in our past lives. The sanskar not only become established in this particular present life, but we are also driven by the sanskar that we developed in some past life. We are driven by them, good or bad, irrespective. The master, the trainer is the same. Dronacharya is the same, because Dronacharya is what? Dronacharya is training, prashikshana, training. Dronacharya means if you go on practicing, habituated of anything, that will establish, that will get concretized in your own conduct, which cannot be easily given a defiance. So it mentions towards the propensities embedded in each human being that travel from one life to another. So here, the master is the same, the trainer is the same. The trainer for good propensities, Pandava, is the same. The trainers for the malefic ones, Kauravas, is the same. Because the trainer by himself does not behold that discriminative intelligence. Discriminative intelligence is not the domain of the trainer. Habits do not know we are good or bad. It is the discrimination vested with the understanding of each aspirant that must be able to discriminate between a good habit or a bad habit. Habit knows only one thing. If you go on practicing day after another, it shall get established deep into the bedrock of your existence. And here, Drishtadyumna, the one who is the general of the army of the opponent, the Pandavas, was also trained by Drona. Now Duryodhana, the eldest son of the blind emperor, is making a sort of it's a complaint in disguise. It's a complaint in disguise. Look there. You see that army of the enemy, governed by, conducted by, strategized by Drishtadyumna, your student. Duryodhana too is the student of Drona. Drona means we must recollect. Unless we formatize our understanding in accordance with the technology of Gita, somewhere by using these common names, we may get lost into the characterization, whereby the personification was referred as human beings, whereas it is not so. In actual, these are subtler states within a human being, ascribed by names in true accordance with the nature of each subtler existence in a human being. So Duryodhana is making a complaint in disguise to his trainer. Look, our enemy has been strategized by the general whom you trained. Drishtadyumna. Drishtadyumna, I'll have to go slightly backward in order to express and make you understand the prominence of the word Drishtadyumna. Drishtadyumna happens to be the son of another king whose name was Drupada. Drupad was the father of Drishtadyumna. Now what does Drupad mean? Drupad means that lightning deep understanding that comes amidst each human being. At times we confront situations where at a lightning speed the mind realizes some fact that is termed as Drupada. Any time of our life, whenever a lightning, deep understanding dawns on to us, consider Drupad happening with you. Now, Drupad, he conducted a sacrificial rite in order to seek some gifts from the nature. He wanted 2 children. While he was conducting that sacrificial rite, that we term as yagna, whereby chanting certain mantras, we perform an exercise by lighting fire. Yagna does not only confine to a mechanical exercise. All and any exercise that leads to further growth, distribution, expansion is termed as yagna. While he is conducting a yagna, the outcome of the yagna comes from its flame, its fire. And the outcome is 2 children. One, a baby girl, another is a baby boy. Don't get conflicted, because the act of procreation has nothing to do with this. In a manifestation, in the world with manifested, act of procreation is different. It is differently done. But here, in order to express those subtler aspects, the great seers has make use of those activities that generally human beings dispense on a gross plane. Whenever there is a deep understanding at the speed of a lightning, immediately in each one of us, these 2 shall become born. The baby girl was named as Draupadi, and the baby boy was named as Drishtadyumna. Draupadi means that power, that force that lies dormant in each one of us. If awakened by rightful measures, it would propel all the latent centers that have been enshrined by the Almighty in any human being. The subtler, powerful centers that we term as chakras. 5 major chakra. The 6th one is the ultimate experience, the realization kutastha. The 5 subtler chakras, the power centers, they are propelled by, they are fueled by the energy that was described as Kundalini. And Draupadi is the Kul Kundalini. It is the power of the clan. Kul means the clan, the Pandava clan. The clan is a formation of 5 brothers. And Kundalini is the Shakti, is the common power beheld by all 5. Not materialistically or not in the gross form, the wife of 5 brothers. It has been termed as the wife with the 5 brothers. 5 brothers share the common wife, common lady, but it's not so. These 5 subtler center, they share the common power to propel themselves, ignite, arise. These subtler center shall always lie dormant. They have an existence within us, but even while having existence, they remain as centers of nonentity. Their existence would only come into consideration when they are propelled with the requisite fuel of Kul Kundalini, that is Draupadi. So from the fire of deep and lightening understanding arise 2. 1, the power that can propel all subtle power centers in a human being. And the second aspect is the indefiable emanation in a human being. Whenever there is a deep urge in a human being to do something, there is a deep urge which is non-compromising. You can't compromise. It drives you to excel in any manner, to surpass any odds. That deep inner drive, that urge is Drishtadyumna. So these 2 are born whenever there is a lightning realization towards any subject in life. The moment you experience that, these 2 will come. The force will come. that will awaken your dormant self. And beside that will be an emanation, a deep drive within you that will drive you through all tamas, all that inertia that generally a human being, the human insight is gripped with for inaction or for any reason. It will defy all. And the same happens here too. Drishtadyumna has been appointed as the general by the army of the enemy according to Duryodhana. Who is Drishtadyumna? Do not forget that. Drishtadyumna is that inner urge, the strong inner drive that you cannot defy. When you have a deep resolve within yourself, when you're full of energy, you're charged with absoluteness to accomplish something, then you do not give yourself away to any excuse. Nothing can hold you then. That is Drishtadyumna. And when Drishtadyumna takes the charge to plan the strategy of the army, then problem of any size will become minuscule. And that is what Duryodhana is ascribing to his master. The one who has been trained by you holds the might to be a general of the army of the enemy. Look, he informs him. According to the epic, Drona was eliminated, killed by Drishtadyumna. Dronacharya was eliminated by Drishtadyumna. And it happens when you have a strong drive inside, the indefiable one that you cannot give defiance. I term generally a drive which is ineffable, cannot be contained. When it arises, it will immediately eliminate any kind of propensity that has been holding you. That is why whenever a drive charges within you, when you enlive, when you are driven by it, the first thing you eliminate is any propensity that has been holding you. Propensity means the hardened, habitual exercises, this life or for any life. It is therefore that Drishtadyumna holds the might to eliminate Dronacharya. Though Dronacharya itself was the trainer for Drishtadyumna, but yet Bhagavad Gita establishes for the righteousness in any sphere, society, family, profession, spiritual growth, you must be prepared to eliminate any propensity that comes in your way, that stalls your growth, that abstains you to acquire your rightful opportunity to excel further. That is something which Bhagavad Gita established here in the third shloka. Once we formatize our brain in accordance with the insight of the seer, who envisaged these characters in order to make a common mind understand the subtler movements that go inside. It's the intangible world. There's nothing tangible that can be produced before the sensory organs to perceive. It is all intangible, abstract. How can you relate yourself? How can you recall? How can you ascribe yourself to them? This is the endeavor of the scripture, to make one understand the inner dichotomy. Kurukshetra, Dharmkshetra is nowhere else but within the human being. It is a battle which is internalized. The demonic and the divine both have to fight for the right relentlessly. Both do not want to leave. And you know, according to the epic, who eliminated Drishtadyumna? Who is Drishtadyumna? Let me recall it again. Drishtadyumna is the deep urge, the deep drive within that wants to charter, wants to change, reform, excel. Who eliminated him? The son of the master, the trainer, Dronacharya, by the name Ashwathama. He eliminated Drishtadyumna. Why is it so? There is a reason behind that. Ashwathama means an ever-ending. Ashwathama, the word Ashwath, is also ascribed to a tree of the banyan family, We call it as people in India. A people tree is also termed as Ashwat. Ashwat means changing every moment. What it was a minute before, it's not now. Renewing itself each moment it's anew. That is called as Ashwat. Ashwathama is a reference given by the great seer to that ever-ending desires that keep arising in a human being. It has been mentioned, it has been categorically mentioned by the great seer who gave me the interpretation of the Bhavad Gita. He said, despite of the fact that the inner drive is able to eliminate the trainer drone, despite of that, the warring faction will never settle with that. They will again come back, gather their force. And the first thing they want to eliminate in any seeker is the drive which was there steering the entire army. So in a human being, the first thing that generally gets eliminated is the drive. It's therefore said the drive does not last. And if at all it lasts, it shall not yield, but merely accomplish. Or here in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, as we understand the larger epic, the Drishtadyumna, the deep drive inside, the emanation of accomplishing something is eliminated by that popping window inside a human being, popping each time another new wish, new wish, new wish, new wish, new wish, new wish. The first chapter has been termed as the state of scintillating mind. A mind that is bewildered. Arjuna is under the state of bewilderment. He is dismayed. He is under a state of delusion, giving itself a logic in order not to fight something that cannot withstand. A great seer by the name Rishi Aurobindo expressed it. He said, had been bloodshed so bad. Probably in another epic, another scripture, Ramayana, Ram should have easily contained when he lost his wife. What has happened, so happened. Ho gaya, so ho gaya. What has happened, so happened. I can't do. Let me accept. But he does not yield. He gathers all forces in order to fight the opponent and release the power by the name Sita. The same in first chapter applies to the Arjuna, who is in the state of bewilderment, giving itself excuse of fallacy, unnecessary bias, which is not for any reason or logic, trying to accrue bloodshed to something which he terms as my kith and kinsmen. They are from my clan. I share the same lineage. We are hereditarily attached with each other. And so happens with anyone. All kinds of establishments which we have as deep habits inside, even the malefic ones, are our kith and kin. Somewhere we are inextricably entangled with them. It's not easy to get relinquished. The first shloka of Srimad Bhagavad Gita has been conveyed by the great seers of ancient Indian wisdom as a sutra, as a litmus test before any sincere seeker to observe it each day while you retire from any day, dispensation of your normal obligation any day. When you're about to retire, this shloka is an exercise, but there has to be small alteration in the capacity of a seeker. In the scripture, the first shloka, the first phrase, is a pronouncement by the blind emperor who, under the deep spell of anxiety, wants to know what is the state in the battlefield. Whereas for a true seeker, he must turn the shloka, the side of the shloka, and make it a pronouncement in the capacity of a true seeker by asking the Sanjaya inside, that mirror, pure mirror inside, asking Sanjaya, Dharmkshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yujutsava Mamaka Kaurvaschaiva Kim Kurvat Sanjaya. Whereas the original shlok, the blind emperor wants to know what is happening between my children and the warring ones. Whereas here, the seeker has to ask, what has happened today in my Dharmkshetra, all those necessary obligations that I was supposed to dispense. Karamkshetra, Kurukshetra, what all I could dispense. What happened? Who won the battle? Did I win the battle? To what extent? Or the opponents, the Kauravas, won the battle? What transpired? Inform me, Sanjaya. Without any contamination, tell me what happened with me. This is a piece of exercise, a contemplative sutra, the first shloka of Bhavad Gita. It paves the way amidst each seeker to observe this sutra and find the conclusions of any day that concludes. I conclude my deliberation at first 3 shlokas. Next discourse, we shall embark upon the other part of the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In case if you have any inquiry in your mind, inquisitive intelligence would certainly arise to know more. Sincere seekers would always behold a deep quest within them. I welcome them all to email me through this channel. I shall make myself available within the extents and potentiality I bear in order to resolve their questions. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Om